Welcome to the channel and welcome to episode 6 of the Age of Fantasy Skirmish campaign that I'm playing solo, and we have Goblins versus the Havoc Warrior Disciples. To quickly recap the story so far, so spoiler alert if you haven't seen the previous 5 episodes. The Goblins, known as Dribblesnot's Sneaky Gits, led by their cave shaman Dribblesnot Flashbang. They are currently on 6 victory points. The Havoc Warrior Disciples, known as the Beasts That Hunger, led by Havoc the Exalted, are on 4 victory points. So still all to play for in the final 4 games. Remember, at the beginning of episode 1, we rolled to see how many games we would get, and it was D6 plus 4, and we rolled a 5, so 9 episodes in total. And this will be episode 6. To quickly recap the warbands, I had hoped that the Goblins would have significantly more Goblins in the Goblin warband by now, but being Goblins, they have this nasty tendency to keep dying. So yeah, permadeath is a thing in this campaign, and so far we've managed to chew through 2 units of 3 archers. So I gave up on the archers and I've replaced them with Cave Goblin Spearmen. So we have Dribblesnot Flashbang, the Cave Shaman. He is the leader of the Goblin Warband. He has had various upgrades, so I purchased for him at the start of the series Wizard 2 as an upgrade. Since then he has evolved with experience. He is headstrong, which gives him +1 to morale. He is resilient, which gives him +1 to save rolls. He is a duelist, which makes him -1 to hit in melee, and he is a fanatic, which gives him +1 to attack in melee. He is supported by the ever-faithful Swampy Stompy, the Forest Troll, who has also had some various upgrades. He is a specialist in melee, which gives him +1 to hit in melee. He is resilient, which gives him +1 to save rolls. And now he is also agile, which gives him +1.5 inches to his move, and therefore +3 inches to charge and rush. We've got Slobbergob the Cave Beast. He hasn't got any upgrades yet. And then the latest unit to the warband is Scabbers Stabbers, a unit of 3 cave goblins. They've been upgraded with spears, so the spears give them 1 attack each, and also the phalanx special rule, which means that if any enemies charge them, they have to take a dangerous terrain test equal to the number of goblins in the unit at the time. So if there's 3 goblins in the unit, we roll 3d6, and any rolls of a 1 inflict a wound on the charging unit. But it also means that any charging units that charge them don't get the benefit of any special rules that they would get normally for charging. So for example, most of the Beasts That Hunger have got the Furious rule. So if they charge the goblins with the phalanx, they won't benefit from Furious. They've also got a sergeant in there, Scabber himself, and he just gets +1 to hit. And they've got a battle standard, which means if they inflict any wounds, they count as inflicting 1 extra wound for the purpose of working out whether or not the unit is knocked out. So that is Dribblesnot Sneaky Gits, and they are currently worth 225 points, and they've got 5 points in the bank for later purchases. On to the Havoc Warrior Disciples, being led by Havoc the Exalted. He has yet to level up, and in the very first episode he picked up a chest wound, which gives him -1 to save rolls. We've got 2 Gore Reavers. We've got Strack, who is this one, and Greekar, who is this one. Greekar, with his experience, has been upgraded to an elite, which allows him to re-roll 1 die per round. We've got Gareth the Skull Splitter, who is this guy. He's a Death Reaper, yet to level up. We've got Grag the Howler, who is this guy. He's a Gore Warrior, and he has leveled up, and he is now a specialist in melee, which gives him +1 to hit, so that means he'll be hitting on 2s in combat. Then we've got another Gore Warrior who is Kerulk the Berserk. That's this guy. He is yet to level up. And then finally we have Terrafang. He is a Bloodhound Demon of War, and again he is yet to level up. So while we are looking at the warbands, we'll roll to see what their special objectives are for this game. So these are special objectives that they have to try and achieve during the game, and that will give them a bonus 10 points to spend on the warband at the end of the game. So for the Goblins, we have got a 6, which is Destruction. The most expensive enemy unit is knocked out. So for the beast that hunger, that would be Terrafang. So they are hunting down Terrafang. If they can knock out Terrafang, they'll get an extra 10 points at the end of the game to spend on the warband. For the beast that hunger, it's a 3, and I don't think they can use that. That is casting at least one attempt to cast or block spells every round. They don't have a wizard, so therefore I need to re-roll that. That's another 3. 5. Rage, the first player to knock out an enemy unit. Okay, so in theory that could be relatively easy, but the goblins have proved quite difficult to knock out. The easiest unit to knock out would be Slobbergob, because he's only got 1 wound, whereas Swampy Stumpy and Dribblesnot, they're both tough 3, and it specifically says knock out an enemy unit. The goblins, the 3 goblins, they are a unit, and technically they've got 3 wounds as a unit. So yeah, not the easiest of things to do for the beast that hunger. So as mentioned, Dribblesnot Sneaky gets are worth 225 points. The beast that hunger are worth 250 points. So that means the goblins will get 2 underdog points, because they are worth 2 full lots of 10 points, so 25. Ignore the 5 because it's not a full lot of 10. That leaves 2 full lots of 10. That gives them 2 underdog points to spend during the game to allow them to modify any die by plus or minus 1. Right, let's go and have a look at the mission. Okay, we're set up, and once again we've got 6 objectives, because we're going to be using the mission cards again, and I quite liked the way that it worked last time, using the 1 deck for the 2 armies. I think that worked quite well, so we'll do that again in this one. So we've got objectives 1, 3 and 5 over there near the goblins, and 2, 4 and 6 over here near the War Disciples. The War Disciples won the roll-off for who gets to deploy first. So they're on this side. We've got Harrick and Gareth in the centre. We've got Kerulk and Strack on the left flank. Greekar and Grag the Howler over here. And then on the extreme flank we've got Terrafang. And then for the goblins we've got Dribblesnot and Slobbergob in the centre. We've got Swampy Stumpy on their right flank, our left, and then we've got Scabbers Stabbers, that way round, over near objective 5. Right, so we need to do the first card draw for turn 1 and work out if there's going to be a random event. Right, so not a great card draw for the very first turn. So we've got Charge, which is destroy 1 enemy unit in melee for 1 victory point, or 2 victory points if you destroy 3 or more enemy units in melee. In round 1 I don't think that's going to happen. Then we've got Seize 3, control objective marker 3, that's over near the goblins. So they should get a point for that by the end of the turn. And then finally, Slay the King. In this or any previous round, destroy the enemy hero with the highest tough value. In the case of a tie, in tough values, any of the models count. So basically that's Dribblesnot and Harrick. So yeah, not very many points going to get scored in turn 1, I think. Right, is there going to be a random event? On a 5-up, there will be. That's a 2, so no there isn't. The Beasts that Hunger won the roll-off for deployment, so they will get first activation. For the first activation, Strack has simply rushed forwards, getting a bit further down the battlefield, but being sure to stay within 3 inches of objective 2 in case it comes up in future turns. And Swampy Stompy has had similar ideas for the goblins, moving past objective 1 but staying within 3 inches for future turns. Kerulk the Berserk has also rushed forwards, and he's more concerned with keeping out of line of sight of the wizard than of keeping within 3 inches of objectives. So yeah, he's hidden behind the pillars of that ruined temple. I am classing that as difficult terrain, by the way. So if you're in it, you'll get cover. Anybody shooting across it, not that anybody can shoot anymore because we haven't got any archers, but yeah, it's going to be difficult terrain for the purposes of movement and providing cover. Scabbers Stabbers have advanced onto objective 5, not wanting to get too far up the board for fear of being charged by a nasty demon hound. Gareth the Skull Splitter has rushed forwards, being sure to be out of line of sight of the wizard again, but also making sure he's on objective 4 for future turns. Slobbergob has moved forwards, securing objective number 3. Havoc has also rushed forwards, and the general idea is we're trying to keep out of line of sight of Dribblesnot to make it as difficult as it can be for Dribblesnot to try and cast his infamous glare spell, although not that it worked too greatly in the last game. But yeah, if he's going to cast glare, he certainly needs to move and work for the opportunity. And we'll find out what he's going to do now, because he's the only goblin left to activate. And just to switch things up a bit, because Dribblesnot is a goblin, he is an innate coward, so he doesn't want to be charging headlong or putting himself out in the open. So he's simply advanced onto objective 3, and he's going to cast Nuisance on Scabbers Stabbers. Now, if this passes, it will give Scabbers Stabbers regeneration the next time they fight. Ordinarily this is a 5+, so with Wizard 2 it will be a 3+. There we go, just enough. So Scabbers Stabbers will have regeneration next time they fight. And I've put that little blue plastic crystal next to Scabbers Stabbers just to remind myself that they've got some kind of protective magic shield around them. So with all the goblins activated, the remaining beasts that hunger can activate with impunity. So Grag the Howler has rushed forwards, knowing that he's now not going to get glare cast on him. Greekar has rushed forwards, again keeping within 3 inches of objective 6, just in case it comes up in future turns. And Terrafang is stalking around the side of that rock. So that will be the end of the first turn. Let's take another look at the mission cards. So at the end of turn 1, nobody achieved charge. The goblins are on objective 3, so that will give them a point. And none of the kings were slain. So the goblins are currently ahead 1 point to 0 at the end of turn 1. So that now means that the beasts that hunger can choose a card to discard. And I think we'll go for Slay the King. We'll get rid of that one. And yeah, I think we're pretty confident that we can charge a unit in the next turn and possibly take it down. Let's go into turn 2. So a quick reminder of the dispositions before we look at the card draw. We've got Swampy Stompy over near objective 1. We've got Dribblesnot and Slobbergob near objective 3. And we've got Scabbers Stabbers on objective 5. And they have got the regeneration spell cast on them. For the beasts that hunger, we've got Strack on objective 2. We've got Keralt the Berserk, Gareth the Skull Splitter, and Havoc the Exalted near objective 4 in the middle. Grag the Howler is rushing his way down the field. Greekar is on objective 6, and Terrafang is making his way around this rock towards objective 5. So looking at the card draw for turn 2, we've still got charge from the first turn, so destroy an enemy unit in melee or destroy 3 or more enemy units in melee. Take no prisoners, win a melee by 3 or more wounds. That's possible but not very likely. Or alternatively you can get 2 victory points if you win a melee by 6 or more wounds. I'm pretty sure that's not possible. And then finally we've got hold the line. Have at least 3 units within your deployment zone whilst no enemy units are within your deployment zone. So all that rushing forwards that everybody did in the first turn, they're now going to be backpedaling to get back into their own deployment zones. Right. Is there going to be a random event on a 5-up? Yes, there is. Okay. So we'll use purple dice for 10s, green dice for units. 61. So 61 is Wisdom of the Gods. Select one random unit which immediately gains D3 XP. Okay, right, so we'll roll a dice, and on odds it will be the Goblins, on evens it will be the War Disciples. So it's evens, so it's the War Disciples. Now then, hang on. So I can just about get them all in a line, which is nice and convenient. So we'll go from left to right. I've got a D8, there's 7 units, so I'll simply re-roll an 8. And yeah, whichever number corresponds to the relevant unit, we'll get D3 XP. 3, so that is Gareth the Skull Splitter. He gets D3 XP. For 1. Okay. And yeah, so now moving into the main body of turn 2, the Goblins finished activating first, so they will get a chance to activate first in this turn. Now, as much as I want to see what Greg the Howler is like hitting on 2s in combat, yeah, I think I kind of need to do the classic cast Glare on him. He is currently within 12 inches of Dribblesnot, and also within, definitely within charge range of Slobbergob. So yeah, I think what we need to do is try and neutralise that threat. So let's see if it does go off, and if it does go off, I apologise for all of those of you who wanted to see what he's like in combat, but you never know, it might fail or it might not completely knock him out. Right, so this will go off on a 2, and that's a natural 1, so that's a natural fail. How many times in a row is that now he's naturally failed to cast Glare? Right, so yep, we probably are going to see what Greg the Howler can do in combat, but in the meantime, Dribblesnot is going to bravely march back into the deployment zone and defend it. So he's backed up enough to make sure he's out of charge range, and he's just within the deployment zone, but not close enough to objective 3 to be holding it anymore. Not that that's going to be an issue for this particular round. And just to reiterate from the previous game, a 1 is always a failure regardless of modifiers. So I can't use underdog bonuses to modify the die roll, because it would be a modifier, and a 1 is always a fail regardless of modifiers. So I can't use a underdog point to turn it into a 2 to make it pass. Right, going on to the Beast That Hunger. So Greg the Howler has got 2 targets in charge range. He can either charge Slobbergob or he can charge Scabbers Stabbers. Now bearing in mind at the moment there's a premium on knocking units out, and it is also their special objective for the mission. I think we're going to go for Slobbergob because it's a much easier target. So it's only 1 wound with a 5-up save, as opposed to Scabbers Stabbers, which is 3 wounds with a 6-up save and then 5-up regeneration. So Greg the Howler is going to charge Slobbergob. So Greg the Howler gets 3 attacks on the charge because of Furious, and he's hitting on 2s. And that is 2 hits. 6s are nothing special, and previously there would have been a point in spending an underdog point to turn that 3 into a 2, but now there isn't, and you can't use both of those underdog bonuses on 1 die to make it a 1. So that's 2 hits, and these will be 5-up saves on Slobbergob. Nope, they both fail, so Slobbergob takes 2 wounds. 2 plus 1 is 3, so that means Slobbergob is simply stunned. Can Greg the Howler kick him away on a 4+? Nope. So he will have to back off an inch because he didn't knock out his opponent on the charge. Now because Slobbergob is stunned, all I can do when I activate him is stand him up and unstun him, so he won't be able to make it back into the deployment zone. So that means that Scabbers Stabbers and Swampy Stompy are both going to have to fall back into the deployment zone in order to score the points for Hold the Line. But first of all, I think we need to stand up Slobbergob and unstun him, just so that he doesn't get automatically knocked out by any other rampaging beasts that hunger. So Slobbergob has stood up and unstunned himself, and then we mark him as activated. But that's all we can do for that activation. So moving on to the Beast That Hunger. Now, of course, the card says have at least 3 units within your deployment zone whilst no enemy units are within your deployment zone. Now, Terrafang is on more or less on the centre line of the battlefield. He can easily get within the Goblins' deployment zone. If he charges Scabbers Stabbers, he won't be within the deployment zone, so he's just going to have to simply rush forwards into the deployment zone, and that'll scupper their chance of scoring that point. So I might leave that for the very end, unless of course the Goblins simply don't care about scoring a point for having units in their deployment zone. Thoughts need to be had. I think for now the Beasts That Hunger are going to continue to press the offensive. We've still got plenty of units that can backpedal into their own deployment zone, but Keralt the Berserk is literally just within charge range of Slobbergob. So he's going to rush around the base of this temple and attack Slobbergob. And he will get 3 attacks, hitting on 3s this time. So that's 2 hits. And this time I will spend an underdog bonus on this 3 to turn it into a 2, so that's only 1 hit. This will save on a 5, and that's a 6, so it saves. Slobbergob gets 2 attacks back, and he has not fought in combat yet this turn, so he will hit on 4s. That's 1 hit. AP1, so this will be a 4-up save, which fails. So that's 1 wound through on Keralt the Berserk. That's a 4. So that would be 5 in total. I can spend an underdog point on that to turn it into a 5, and that will knock out Keralt the Berserk. So yeah, I'm going to do that. So now Slobbergob could, if he wanted, consolidate 3 inches, and that's not enough to get him into the Goblins' deployment zone. So I think I'm just going to leave him there. He's definitely out of charge range of any other Beast That Hunger. So yeah, that will be onto the Goblins activation, because that was an activation for the Beast That Hunger. Now then, what I'm thinking is the Goblins have currently got a point for, what's it called? Charge, because they've knocked out an enemy unit. If they can knock out 2 more units, they'll get 2 victory points instead of 1. So we've got Scabbers Stabbers here who could charge Greekar. That's a relatively soft target because he's got a 5-up save, and they'll get 3 attacks, one of which hits on a 4 instead of a 5. And of course the banner counts as having inflicted 1 extra wound if they get any wounds through. So reasonably good chance of taking him out. And then over here, Swampy Stompy can quite easily charge Strack. And if we take out either of those targets, then yeah, it has implications for which units then backpedal into the deployment zone if that's what the Beast of Hunger choose to do. So the question is, do I go for Swampy first onto Strack, or do we go for Scabbers Stabbers onto Greekar? I think at the minute we'll go for Swampy onto Strack. Now with his newfound agility, Swampy has actually got enough movement to get round the back of Strack. And this will be 3 attacks hitting on 3s. And they all miss. Oh, if only I hadn't... well, yeah. 2 2s. I could have used underdog bonuses on them, but they're all gone. And yeah, spent them on keeping Slobbergob alive. Right, so Strack can fight back. He gets 2 attacks hitting on 4s. Neither hit. So much for that idea. Swampy now has to back off an inch, and he has done so in such a way that it puts him out of charge range for Gareth Skullsplitter. Now the trouble with playing against yourself is you know what your own plans are. So now Greekar is going to rush backwards into the deployment zone to make sure he's out of charge range of those Goblins. And that just leaves, for the Goblins, Scabbers Stabbers to activate, and I think they are going to charge Gragler Howler. I was contemplating charging Terrafang, but when all said and done, he is tough 3. Although he is the main target, isn't he? Yeah, we need to target him. If we can knock him out, that'll be for the special objective for the goblins. So yeah, scratch that. They are in charge range of Terrafang, so let's charge Terrafang. No, we'll stick to plan A, because only one of the goblins would be able to get actually into contact with... No, hang on. Yep, I thought for a minute that all of them would have to get into base-to-base contact with Terrafang, but no, just one of them has to get within base-to-base contact, and then the others have to be within 2 inches of him, and we can do that. Yep, the standard bearer managed to get into base-to-base contact, and then the other 2 just about managed to get into 2-inch range of Terrafang. So we'll do the sergeant first, Scabber himself, because he hits on a 4 rather than a 5. I did forget that cave goblins have got furious, but don't worry, I do remember in time to sort it out. And that's a 2, so that misses. And the other 2 hit on 5s. They both hit. This is a 4-up save. And both save. Terrafang gets 2 attacks back, hitting on 3s. Both hit. He's AP1, so natural 6s to save. Neither. But we have got regeneration, so 5-ups. And they both save. It's just as well they got regenerate on there, isn't it? Right. Okay, so now the goblins have to back off an inch. So the goblins have backed up an inch, and they've now used up the power of the nuisance spell. So they no longer have the regeneration spell on them. And a nuisance it did indeed prove to be for the beasts that hunger. Now I don't think it's terribly likely now that the beasts that hunger are going to get any points for the taking enemy units out in melee. So I think we're going to stick to plan A, and Strack is going to rush back into the deployment zone. All of the goblins are now activated, so we can now activate the beasts that hunger as we see fit. Okay, so Strack has rushed back into the deployment zone. Havoc has also rushed back into the deployment zone. It was a bit of a toss-up between whether it was going to be Havoc or Gareth who rushed back into the deployment zone. And aside from Havoc, I think he deserves to try and survive a battle again, to try and get him some more experience. And I think he's more likely to get experience by going backwards and bravely manning their deployment zone. And so Gareth has rushed forwards, and I was then debating what to do with Terrafang, and I remembered that Stabbers are cave goblins. They are furious. They get an extra attack each when they charge. So I need to do some more attacks on Terrafang. So we'll resolve those now. So this is 1 extra attack each. I'm not going to move the models yet. Yeah, 1 extra attack each. We'll start with the sergeant because he hits on a 4, which hits. 4-up save, saves, and then the other 2 hit on 5s. Both hit again. 4-up saves. Both fail. So that's 2 wounds through on Terrafang, and then he would have had to back off an inch after the return attacks. So Terrafang would have survived the attacks anyway. He'll have taken 2 wounds, and then the return attacks we've already resolved, so we'll just leave everything as it is there, but give Terrafang 2 wounds. So now for Terrafang, I think what we'll do is, because he is a bit of a target, I'm torn between rushing him backwards to get away from the marauding goblins who could potentially finish him off in the next turn, or rushing around towards objective 5 in case that comes up in the next turn. So he can quite easily get past the goblins. You need to not move within an inch of an enemy unit. So yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll rush him around so that he's well positioned. Almost a game of chess this, isn't it? Ready for the next turn. Not a big fan of chess. It requires far too much thinking for my particular liking. That might be heresy to some people because it is like the ultimate father of the war game, but yeah, not a big fan of chess. I used to play in school, and I was actually quite good. I was captain of the B team for the school. But anyway, I digress. Let's move Terrafang. So with his fast ability, he has managed to get all the way on to objective 5 by running around those goblin spearmen. And that is the last activation of the turn. So quick overview of the dispositions before we look at the cards. We've got Harak and the 2 Gore Reavers. They backed up into the Beast That Hunger deployment zone. But these 3 objectives, so 2, 4 and 6, they still count as being held by the Beast That Hunger for future turns, because that's the way it works in this particular game system. And Swampy Stompy is over near objective 2, but I've just measured it and he is just over 3 inches away. So yeah, he is not contested or controlling that objective. So these 3 still under the control of the Beast That Hunger. On the other side, the Beast That Hunger still control objective 1. By that I obviously mean the Goblins, not the Beast That Hunger, for the same reason. We've got Gareth heading up there, and then we've got objective 3 is contested at the moment because of Grag the Howler, and we've got Dribblesnot towards the back in the deployment zone, and we've got Slobbergob, who is currently on 2 wounds, which is pretty impressive for saying he's a 1 wound character. And then over here we've got Terrafang, who's taken 2 wounds. He's on objective 5, and we've got Scabberstabbers moving around that rock. So that's where we're at. Let's go and check out the cards and see who scores what points. Right, so we've got Charge, destroy 1 enemy unit in melee. That was achieved by the Goblins because Slobbergob took out Keralt the Berserk, so they will get 1 point for that. No enemy units were taken out by the Beast That Hunger, and importantly, because the Beast That Hunger were not the first warband to knock out an enemy unit, they have not fulfilled their special objective, because they had to do that, so now they can't achieve it. So that card has been used. Take no prisoners, win a melee by 3 or more wounds. Yeah, that didn't happen on either side. Hold the line, so the Beast That Hunger have achieved that one, so that's 1 point for the Beast That Hunger. So that puts it at 2 points for the Goblins, 1 point for the Havoc Warrior Disciples. And again, because they are losing, they get a chance to take a card away. And I think we will get rid of Take No Prisoners, because that's going to be tough for either side to achieve. So we will get rid of that. As we go into turn 3, once again the Goblins finished activating first, so they will get the first activation in the next turn. Okay, here's the card draw for turn 3. We've got Hold 2, so control objective marker 2 at the beginning and end of the same round. At the moment, the Beasts That Hunger are in possession of objective 2, but Swampy Stompy is pretty close by. We've got Shifting Strategy, so we need to roll a d6, 4, so you need to control objective marker 4 for 1 point, or if you control objective marker 4 after it was controlled by an enemy at the start of the turn, you get 2 points. So at the moment it's held again by the Beast That Hunger. It might be a bit of a tall order for the Goblins to get on it though. And then finally we've got Cleanse the Skies, destroy an enemy unit with the flying rule. Well, we haven't got any models at all with the flying rule, so we need to discard that. And the next card is Delve Deep. Have at least 1 unit within the enemy's deployment zone for 1 point, or have at least 3 units within the enemy's deployment zone for 2 victory points. So that is probably possible for the Beast That Hunger, but less so for the Goblins. So this could be an interesting turn for the Goblins. Right, so just realised I've used my random event die for the Shifting Strategy die. So I'll use the green one instead. Is there going to be a random event on a 5-up? No, there isn't. I'm glad about that, otherwise I would have interfered with my dice. Right, going into turn 3, and the Goblins get the first activation. Right, so what I've done is I've put some different coloured crystals on the objectives to show who controls them. So obviously red for the beast that hunger. So they're currently in control of these three, and as I say, they're Swampy Stompy, so he can potentially challenge objective 2 or objective 4, and then it's a short hop, skip and a jump into the deployment zone marked out by these three guys who had to get into the deployment zone on the last turn. And then over there we've got objective 5, which is currently controlled by the beast that hunger. Objective 3 contested, objective 1 held by the Sneaky Gits. And for the first activation, I think Dribblesnot is in a bit of trouble because he's got an angry Death Reaper. Yeah, he's a Death Reaper within charge range. He is just outside of glare range for Terrafang, so I think he will have to move. And I think what he's going to do is run around behind that rock to get away from this guy, from Gareth, and then he will be in range to cast a spell on Terrafang. So I think that's what we're going to do for the first activation. So Dribblesnot has rushed behind this rock and is now more than 12 inches away from where Greg the Howler could possibly charge him, and is within spellcasting range of Terrafang. So we're going to keep it simple, we're going to go for glare. So 2 up. Just. That's a 2. This will be a 6 up save for Terrafang. That's a fail. So that puts Terrafang onto 5 wounds. He will be knocked out on anything other than a 1 or a 2. As a 2, he's not knocked out, he is simply stunned. So with that, I think we're going to have to activate Terrafang straight away and simply stand him up to unstun him, because otherwise he's very much a sitting duck for the goblins charging him. Scabbers stabbers. So yeah, Terrafang unstuns himself and simply gets marked as activated. So then on to the goblins' next activation. Looking at the board, this is a really good opportunity for the beast that hunger to run away with loads of points, and there's not a lot the goblins can do about it. So when you think the objectives we've got hold 2. Well, the beast that hunger have already got objective 2, so if we don't contest objective 2, that's 2 points for the beast that hunger. The shifting strategy one is objective 4, which again the beast that hunger already control, so that would be 3 points. And the chances of taking it without it being contested by the beast that hunger are pretty slim, because there's 3 models down here that could easily contest it, and then the beast that hunger can easily get one of their characters into the goblins' deployment zone, because they've still got these 2 guys over here. So yeah, I don't think the goblins are going to do very well on this round for points. So having problems working out what it is I want to do. Right, I'm going to activate Slobbergob, who is over here. He has got the Boing ability, which means if he rushes, he can move an extra 3d3 inches. And I've measured up, and even if he rolls 1s for everything, he will just get within 3 inches of objective 2 to contest it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to rush towards objective 2. So it would be 12 inches plus 3d3, and that's 3, 6, 7. So that should get him a fair way. Right, let's measure up and see where that gets him to, because that will be 19 inches he can move in total. Okay, so he's managed to get all the way down here, and I've tried to get him as far away from any enemy units as I can, but he's still going to be in charge range, certainly of Strack and possibly of Gareth. But yeah, let's go into the beast that hunger for their activation. Yeah, I've given it some thought, and I think the best thing for the beast that hunger right now is for Gareth to charge from over here around. He can just reach Slobbergob. and yeah, that will then mean there's a nice big tough model on there, so that Swampy Stompy has got a bit of a tougher target to shift off the objective. If we were to rush or charge in with Strack from over here, then yeah, if he is able to take out Slobbergob, which is reasonably possible because Slobbergob is already on 2 wounds and he's only got 5 up save, then yeah, it's relatively straightforward for Swampy to take on Strack, whereas Growrath is a different kettle of fish, being tough 3. So that's what we'll do. Growrath is going to charge in on Slobbergob. So Growrath gets 3 attacks, hitting on 3s. Okay, that's not quite so good. That's 3 1s. Look at that. 3 1s. Slobbergob gets 2 attacks back, hitting on 4s. They both miss as well. So now Growrath has to back off an inch. So right here, right now, the Goblins are at least contesting that objective, which is going to deny the Beast at Hunger 2 points. But we can charge in with Strack at some point. So I think what Swampy's going to do is he is going to charge Strack. Right, with this newfound agility, Swampy can actually move 15 inches on the charge, but that's actually more or less 12. So ran around that way. So this will be 3 attacks hitting on 3s. And that is 3 hits. I need to get better with rolling my dice on camera better, don't I? These are AP1, so 6s to save. Let's go up here. That's 3 fails, so that's 3 wounds on Strack. And Strack is knocked out. Now Strack was right on the edge of the deployment zone, so Swampy can now consolidate 3 inches any way he likes. So he can consolidate 3 inches forwards, and that will get him into the deployment zone. And that is Swampy activated. I do apologise if you can hear the car alarm going off in the background. I'm not sure if the microphone's picking that up or not. Next activation for the Beast at Hunger, Havoc is going to charge Swampy, and this is a battle we've seen several times before. So on the charge, Havoc gets 5 attacks with his halberd, hitting on 3s. Ooh, 6s are rending. So they are AP4 and 3 regular hits, so all 5 hit. Right, let's do these 2 6s because these need to be 6s to save, and regeneration won't work against them because of rending. No, so that's 2 wounds through on Swampy, and then 3 regular saves of 4 up. 2 of them are made, and then this last one can be regened on a 5 up. And that one saves, so that's 2 wounds through on Stompy. Swampy Stompy now hits back, but only on unmodified 6s because he's already fought in combat this turn. And that's 1 hit. This will be AP1, so 5 up save, which fails. So that's 1 wound on Havoc. 2 wounds on Stompy, 1 wound on Havoc. And then Havoc has to back off an inch. I am starting to realise that some of my colour schemes are not the most photogenic. But on to the Goblins, and their last activation for the turn is going to be Scabbers Stabbers charging Terrafang. So remembering Furious this time, we'll start with Scabber the Sergeant. He gets 2 attacks hitting on 4s. That's 1 hit. Saving on a 4. Fails. Passes, sorry, it's a 5 up. And then 2 attacks each from the other 2, so 4 attacks hitting on 5s. 1 hit. And again, 4 up save. That's cocked. Looks like it would have been a 6, but you know how to do it. If it's not flat on the table, benefit of the doubt reroll. That's a save. Terrafang gets 2 attacks back hitting on 3s. 2 hits. 6s to save. So that's 1 save, 1 wound. So we'll take that on the regular dude, who is this guy. And we don't roll to see if he's knocked out. He's automatically knocked out because he's part of a multi-model unit. So then Scabber and his battle standard bearer have to back off an inch, and we mark them as activated. And with all the goblins activated, Grag the Howler is simply going to rush forwards to get into the deployment zone of the goblins, thusly. And I think with Greekar, we're just going to move him in such a way where he's going to be reasonably flexible in what he can do in the next turn. I don't want to simply rush him down this way, because then there'll be a very angry forest troll potentially knocking him out. So I think we'll move him around here somewhere, so he's got a bit of flexibility in terms of the options that he's got for movement in the next turn. And he's actually ended up over there, because Swampy the Stompy's now agile, so he can actually charge 15 inches now. So yeah, like I say, he's got a few options for what he does next turn. So that will be the end of turn 3. Let's have a quick overview of where everybody's at, and then we'll look at the cards. So starting over here, objective 2 is now contested. Objective 4 is still held by the Beast That Hunger, but we have got Swampy in their deployment zone. Objective 6 is still held by the Beast That Hunger. Objective 5 is still held by the Beast That Hunger. Dribblesnot is behind that rock. Grag the Howler is in the Goblins deployment zone. Objective 3 is contested. And Objective 1 is still held by the Goblins. Alright, let's see what that means looking at the mission cards. Right, so nobody achieved hold 2 because it's currently contested. The Beasts That Hunger are in control of Objective 4, so they will get 1 victory point for that. And then Delve Deep, both of the warbands managed to score 1 point for that because they both have 1 unit in the other's deployment zone. So that will give the Goblins 1 more point, which puts them on 3, and the Beasts That Hunger get 2 points, putting them on 3. So currently it's a 3-all draw going into turn 4. And so that one's been captured. So ordinarily the loser gets to discard a card, but as we don't have a loser, I think we're going to have to keep hold of Objective 2. That's what we've done in the previous game. Okay, I promise you I do shuffle these and I do draw them completely at random, but we've still got hold 2 from the previous turn, and I've drawn C4 and C6. There's not much hope that the Goblins are going to be able to do much with that, because the Beasts That Hunger are currently in control of Objective 4 and Objective 6, and there's not many Goblin units near either of them. So we are still going to play out the turn, because there's various opportunities for XP from knocking out units and such like. And we'll see if there's going to be a random event on a 5-up. No, there isn't. Goblins get the first activation, because they finished activating first in turn 3. I think, as usual, start with Dribblesnot. We need to get rid of Terrafang because we need those extra points to spend on the warband for the Goblins. And we need to get Dribblesnot away from Grag the Howler, who is charging around that rock. So Dribblesnot is going to leg it this way, out of charge range of Grag, and then try and cast some kind of spell on Terrafang. Let's face it, it's going to be Glare. And yeah, sorry if that's getting a bit old, but it's just too good not to do. And then we'll cast Glare. So Dribblesnot is simply rushed over, making sure he's more than 12 inches away from Grag, within 12 inches of Terrafang, and now we need anything but a 1. That's a 4, so that's a pass. Terrafang needs a 6 to save, which is a fail, which then puts him on 8 wounds, so that's an automatic KO because he's tough 3, and regardless of what we roll on the die, it's 8 plus, even if it's a 1, is 9, and 8 would be sufficient to knock him out. So that will be Terrafang knocked out. So to be fair, it did take all 4 turns for the Goblins to knock out that one model. Right, let's go into the Beasts That Hunger, see what they're going to do for their first activation. Havoc is going to charge Swampy. 5 attacks hitting on 3s. And that's 3 hits with no rend. 4 up saves. 2 save. Does the one that get through regenerate? No, it doesn't. So that puts Swampy onto 3 wounds. So on a 5 or a 6, Swampy will be knocked out. No, that's a 3, so he's just stunned. Can Harrick kick him away? No point in doing it. Not really. Well, yeah, could we kick him closer to Gareth? But I think Gareth's in charge range anyway. No, you can't kick him. But like I say, kind of irrelevant because Gareth is in charge range anyway, so Gareth can simply charge him, but not yet because the Goblins get an activation. So Swampy can simply stand up, but we need to back Harrick off an inch. So yeah, Swampy can activate next. He will simply stand up to unstun himself. So Gareth could charge Swampy because Swampy has now taken 3 wounds, so he is at the stage where he could potentially be knocked out, and that would be the more glorious KO. But you don't get any more experience for knocking out a model with tough 3 than you do for taking out any other model, unless it's a hero, or rather the enemy general. So I think Gareth is simply going to charge Slobbergob and try and knock him out. So Gareth gets 3 attacks on the charge. That's 3 hits, and those 2 6s are rending. So this 3 will be a 5 up save, which fails. So that puts Slobbergob on 3 wounds. And then these 2 will be 6s, natural 6s. Nope. So that puts Slobbergob on 5 wounds. So again, that will be automatic KO effectively, because the minimum we can roll is a 1. And yeah, that's easily enough to knock out Slobbergob. It is kind of academic now, but for their last activation, Scabbers Stabbers are going to charge Greekar. So the standard bearer managed to get into contact with Greekar, and then Scabber himself is within 2 inches. Scabber first, 2 attacks hitting on 4s. 1 hit. 5 up save. There's a fail, but Greekar can re-roll 1 die per turn. That's still a fail, so that's 1 wound through on Greekar. The Battle Standard Bearer gets 2 attacks hitting on 5s. Both fail. So that's 1 wound through on Greekar, but 2 for the purposes of working out number of wounds to see how injured he is. So 4 plus 2 is 6, so Greekar is knocked out. And Scabbers Stabbers have consolidated 3 inches, but unfortunately that's not enough to get them within 3 inches of objective 6. So now that just leaves Grag the Howler to activate, and there's nothing that he can do that is going to be particularly meaningful. However, the Beasts That Hunger are now down to less than half of their starting strength. So that means they need to take morale tests. But again, I don't think that's going to have any impact on what happens. Right, I've moved Grag the Howler onto objective 3 just for the sake of doing something with him. Right, so we are at the end of turn 4 with the exception of the morale test. Now let's quickly see what's going on. It's a 3-all draw at the minute, and we've got hold 2, which isn't going to get scored by anybody because it wasn't held by the Beast That Hunger at the start of the turn. So even if Gareth runs away, it's not going to make any difference. We've got Seize 4, which is already controlled by the Beast That Hunger, so that'll be a point for the Beast That Hunger. And then we've got Seize 6, which again is already controlled by the Beast That Hunger. So the Goblins are not going to score any points. So even if the Beast That Hunger fail all their morale tests, it's still going to be a victory for the Beast That Hunger. But we'll do it anyway, just for laughs. But yeah, ultimately, this is a victory for the Beast That Hunger. 5 points to 3. So this isn't even going to have any kind of effect on the XP that anybody's going to gain. But like I say, we'll do it for laughs. Right, Gareth, 3 up. He's okay. Harrick, who has run away on numerous occasions, 3 up. And he's going to run away again. That's a 2. Right. Grag the Howler on a 3 up. That's a 6, so he's going to stick around. So I think the Beast of the Hunger needs to have a leadership contest, because Havoc keeps running away and he's not as buff as he used to be with his chest wound. So yeah, it could be interesting to see what happens, but he has now won 2 victories for them in a row. Okay, for the end of game admin, the Beast That Hunger got 2 points for winning, so that puts them on 6 victory points for the campaign. The Goblins got 0 victory points for losing, but they've already got 6 points for the campaign. So at the end of game 6, it is 6 points for the Beast That Hunger and 6 points for the Goblins. Ooh, spooky. Right, that aside, the Beast That Hunger did not achieve their special objective, so they will simply get 10 points to spend on their warband. The Goblins did achieve their secret objective, which gives them an extra 10 points to spend on their warband, plus 30 points for coming last. So an extra 40 points to spend on their warband, plus the 5 they've already got, making it 45. And the Beast That Hunger have got 20 points in the bank, I think, so that gives them 30. I'll work that out when we get to the recruitment step. On to casualties. The casualties suffered during the game were Slobbergob, Greekar, Terrafang, Kerrick the Berserk, and Strack. Going from left to right, starting with Slobbergob. If this is a 1, I'm not going to be very pleased. That's a 3. Okay. So the Goblins are going to get to buy another unit. Whoop! Greekar. He's fine. Terrafang. He's fine and gains an experience point. Kerrick the Berserk. He's fine. And finally Strack is fine and gains an experience point. Okay, on to experience. Lots of experience earned in this game. Starting with Dribblesnot Sneaky Gits. Dribblesnot got 1 XP for a knockout. He knocked out Terrafang, and he also gets an XP for surviving. That puts him on to 14, so 1 away from another upgrade. Swampy Stompy gets 1 XP for a knockout, and he also gets another XP for surviving, putting him on 18, so 2 points away from his next upgrade. Scabbers Stabbers get 2 XP. Now, only one of them got knocked out during the game, and they're a unit of 3. So if 2 of them had been knocked out, they would have counted as a casualty. But because only one of them got knocked out, they don't count as a casualty, so they get an XP for surviving. So they get 2 XP, 1 for a knockout and 1 for surviving. And then finally, Slobbergob gets an XP because he had a KO as well, so putting him on 2. So plenty of XP earned for the Goblins, but no upgrades. For the Beast That Hunger, Havoc got an XP for surviving. Strack got an XP for being a natural talent and rolling a 6 on his wound table. Gareth the Skull Splitter got 1 XP from the random event. He got 1 XP for surviving the battle, and he gets 1 XP for getting a KO, and that will put him on 5, so he is going to get an upgrade. Grag the Howler survived, so he gets an XP, and then finally Terrafang gets an XP, again for a natural talent for rolling a 6 on the injury table, so that puts him up to 2. So we need to now roll for Gareth Skull Splitter's upgrade. That's a 1, which is agile. He gets plus 1.5 inch move on advance and plus 3 inch move on rushing and charging. Right, let's look at recruitment. So the Goblins haven't gone for any unit upgrades, however they have recruited another 3 cave goblins. They're all upgraded with spears, just like the other unit are, so they get the phalanx rule. And this unit has also got a musician, which works the same way as the battle standard. So if they inflict any wounds in combat, they count as having dealt an extra wound for the purposes of working out whether or not the enemy is knocked out or not. Now for the Beast That Hunger, I really ummed and ahed about whether or not to give them any more units. I contemplated giving them another couple of Gore Reavers. They've got 30 points to spend, or even another Gore Warrior. They could afford 2 Gore Reavers or 1 Gore Warrior, but again I think I'm saving that in the hope of getting some more points for them to be able to get them another better quality unit. So that is the end of episode 6 of the Age of Fantasy Skirmish campaign between the Goblins and the Havoc Warrior Disciples. I hope you enjoyed that. I think that felt like a bit more of a beefier fight, a bit more brutal, and an interesting one. So please continue to join me for the next episode, and until next time, please continue to like, comment and subscribe, and God bless.